So I've talked about high expectations before on this channel and how you shouldn't have them because it can ruin an experience, especially with movies. And I try to never have expectations going into movies, even though it's inevitable, but I just can't help it. I have such high expectations for Longlegs, and I honestly don't think I've been this excited for a movie in my whole life. So a couple of my friends texted me like right after I got out the theater, and of course they're all, how was it? Was it scary? Is it good as everybody says it was? And as you will see in this video, I obviously said it was very good and I loved it, but the only word I could use to describe this movie and how I feel is indescribable. So this video is probably not going to make a lot of sense. There's no structure. I don't really have any notes. It's just the ramblings of a man who was completely shocked. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'm gonna try and attempt to talk about Longlegs. I said this in my 2 short videos about the marketing of Longlegs, but the imagery and visuals give me this really indescribable feeling. I compared it to Uncanny Valley because it was familiar imagery, horror, blood, cults, religion, but it just felt different. Something was just extra eerie and off about it. And that feeling carried with me from the very beginning of the movie, all the way until me recording this right now. I can't shake it, man. And one of the main components that evokes this feeling is the cinematography. There are these super tight claustrophobic shots paired with these far away isolating ones. Some are right in your face as all you can hear is Micah Monroe's breathing. I mean, they put that microphone right under her mouth. And then some are off in the distance and really quiet as you start imagining something hiding in the corner. And it doesn't help that everything is extremely dark, like literally the lighting a lot of the times. Along with the eerie vibe, muted colors, and the soundtrack. Everything just feels foreboding and disturbing. But this is most apparent with the acting from Micah Monroe. She is so restrained and void of any emotion besides fear. She talks in these fast spurts, stares off into the distance, and sometimes just literally utters a peep or a gulp. I mean, she is at maximum discomfort throughout the entire movie, looking like she's about to throw up or something. And there's multiple scenes where she's either talking to the sergeant or on the phone with her mother, where they literally just sit there in awkward silence for longer than you would imagine. And besides 2 of the other detectives, no one acts normal or even human. Especially other characters that I don't want to dive in too much because I'm trying not to spoil it. But Micah's character feels and can be treated like she just learned how to be human. Almost childlike. It honestly feels like she has a gun to her back the entire film, and everything she decides to say is super calculated and scripted. Like if she says the wrong thing, she will get shot. But that restrained personality she has is paralleled by the pacing of the movie. It does jump right into it. I mean, the first 2 scenes had me on edge for the full 2 hours. But it keeps you on the verge of a jump scare just to hold you there for like 30 minutes at a time. I mean this in a good way, but it's like dragging you through it. You're always anticipating something horrific. It's like in your dreams when you're being chased but you can't run fast enough. When you go to scream but nothing comes out. Almost like you're stuck in molasses or quicksand trying to escape. Just like Micah, it's like having that frog in your throat, or whatever the saying is. Like when you try to talk without crying. I don't know if I'm making sense, it's just very restraining, and it drags you through the mud. I imagine this is what it would be like moments before a car crash, or Hate to Be Dark, the way down from jumping off a building, if that feeling were prolonged. You're shocked, but you have no choice but to face it head on. And it does release you with some pretty textbook jump scares, but with way more disturbing and unique imagery, just to throw you right back into anticipation a second later. There is no relaxing while watching this. And the only other breaks in the film are surprisingly with laughs. There are some really funny, dry humor moments in this film that will have you laughing out loud. And then there's those moments where you laugh out of awkwardness. I mean, the entire theater I was in, including myself, laughed so much more than you would think for such a disturbing movie like this. But uncomfortable and awkward is the best way I could describe this film. I couldn't sit still, I was fidgeting, sweating, I kept looking over my shoulder. It just puts you in such a weird place. You feel how Micah's character feels, almost dissociated but too aware of what's going on at the same time. And another aspect that I feel heightens this emotion is, this is a very confusing film. With the dark lighting, sometimes you can't tell what you're looking at. And then when you pair this with how Micah talks, but especially this other character that comes in for a scene, some of the dialogue is not understandable. That scene in particular where she's talking to someone about the case, that person does not speak complete English. It'll make more sense why when you see it, but some words she says don't sound like words, or they're the wrong words to use, making her ramblings incoherent at times. And then you pair all of this with the story. It is more of a murder mystery psychological thriller than anything. And the case seems like something that would be super fun and intriguing for us, the audience, to try and solve with the characters, but they never really give you a chance to. And Micah does all the solving very rapidly to where, like I said, you don't even get a chance to fully digest some of the information by the time she's already on to the next lead. And this is also due to the fact that you can never really tell if it's a supernatural story or not. You keep second guessing, like, does she have powers? Does Longleg have powers? Like, is this just a real story, or is this a demonic story? Which again, I think just adds to how good it is. And all of this makes the movie very fast-paced even though it feels very long. It is jam-packed in every second. Just like some of the marketing pieces, there are frames rapidly spliced in, cuts to scenes of gruesome imagery, and some of the scares are just super fast. But that's what makes this movie so terrifying. It's utterly disturbing from start to finish. And then of course, the one and only Nick Cage. Now again, going off the marketing, I thought they were going to show very little of him only to have a big climactic reveal, kind of like the Jaws rule. And they continue to do this where they show small glimpses of him, following in the anticipating nature of the film. And when we finally get to see him, it's not the scare I was expecting, but it was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. He is not only unrecognizable, but his acting is something I've never seen before. Now, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to give too much away. The intention of this video is, well, I guess I don't really know what it is, I'm just super excited and scared and need to talk about it. But there's truly no way I could put into words what his performance is. I'm a huge Nick Cage fan, as I'm sure you guys have seen in my reviews of Mandy and Adaptation, but what makes him so great is his ability to be over the top and animated without being cheesy or corny. It's very similar to Jack Nicholson, who is the only other actor I could imagine playing this role, and I'm not even sure if he could do it like Cage does. His portrayal of Longlegs is gut-wrenchingly terrifying and in your face. I would compare it to if someone with bad breath was talking right up on you, or someone larger than you was giving you way too strong of a hug. It's like sitting next to a ticking time bomb, and if you move ever so slightly, it will explode. It feels like at any moment he is going to do the craziest thing you've ever seen, which he kinda does do, and you're just waiting as he acts like the Joker on crack. When it comes to the character of Longlegs and honestly the entire movie, I just don't know what to say. It's great and I love it, but I can't tell you exactly why. And I think that's why it's so horrifying. For almost 2 hours, I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. It felt like I was submerged in the darkest and most twisted feeling that I couldn't escape, almost like I was watching it against my own will. It somehow finds a way to be extremely artistic and stylized while being extremely disturbing. And I swear I'm not over-exaggerating, and I know there's other films with body horror, torture, and all that jazz that are more visually disturbing, but this feels more dreadful than all of them. I'm a huge horror fan, and I'd like to think I've seen more than the average person. But for the longest time, I had given up on the genre. It takes so much to scare or disturb me, and with the landscape of horror being oversaturated with supernatural stories, I didn't think I could really ever get scared again. You know, besides like real life stuff. When I first watched A Conjuring or Insidious when I was younger, they traumatized me because I believed those demons could really get me. But now that I'm older and I don't really believe in ghosts or anything like that, those movies just don't hit for me. Horror is scariest when it's grounded in reality, something we could actually experience, like a crazy cult member who stays in the basement making dolls and worships the devil. That's like multiple serial killers that we know of. And while this movie does have supernatural elements, it takes so long to find out if it's real life stuff or not. And while it can be confusing at times, it does end up giving you most of the answers you were looking for. But because you can't really tell what's going on, at least for me, I didn't know what to be afraid of or why I was so uncomfortable. It is very similar to Uncanny Valley and the fear of the unknown, where not fully understanding makes it more scary. The way I described it to one of my friends is most horror movies are like someone fake punching you. Of course, you're going to flinch, but you don't necessarily view them as a threat. They just happen to catch you off guard. Whereas this movie is like someone much larger than you and looking very threatening is menacingly hovering around you. You know they could get you, but you don't know when. And I've seen a lot of people comparing this to Silence of the Lambs, which plot-wise is very similar, but Longlegs makes that movie feel like a walk in the park. Maybe I'm just a victim of the moment, but this is truly the most impacted I've ever been from a horror movie. This made me feel extreme dread, maximum discomfort, and this lingering feeling that something was gonna get me. Hell, I still feel it now. There was two more points that I wanted to touch on. I'll make them quick. I just forgot and thought about them while I'm editing. But one, I don't think I gave enough credit to the acting. I mean, horror movies never get that kind of respect. But this level of acting from Micah Monroe and especially Nicolas Cage is up there with any drama or thriller you can think of. Just because of what it takes to get to that place, like I just can't imagine it. So, long story short, it's amazing acting. But two, another feeling that I was feeling was refreshed. This movie in general is so refreshing to the horror genre, one, because it's so weird. I just feel like you don't see this type of imagery or storytelling, especially in the mainstream. Like, this is the biggest movie of the year so far. But Osgood Perkins, I think is his name. I don't know who the hell he is, but dude, he had complete creative control with this, you can tell. As weird as he wanted to be, he was able to be. So at points it kind of feels like an indie movie in that aspect, and it's definitely not the highest of budgets, but for something to be this weird, unique, artistic, and just disturbing, visually disturbing, for it to be getting this level of praise and the eyes on it that it has been, I mean, it just lets you know movies don't have to be these huge blockbuster superhero. I know I talk shit on superhero movies, but it's just refreshing. Like we haven't seen anything like this, and I feel like with the success that it's having so far and that it will have, not only will it allow for more movies like these to be in theaters and in the mainstream, but I feel like it could reinvent the horror genre. Like I talked about with everything being supernatural exorcism remake, this will show people that there's other ways to sell tickets and there's a lot of other ways to scare the hell out of you. A good horror movie terrifies you in the moment, but a great one sticks with you long after. And yes, it's only been a few hours, but I feel like I'm on a drug that won't wear off. I'm not sure if this video even makes sense, and I'm probably just rambling for the sake of rambling, but you need to go see this movie. They aren't paying me to say this, although they probably should, but I need you guys to see it so you can let me know if I'm going crazy or not. Also, just look at the drive home I had to make after this.